Hi, everyone. This is Caroline with the Expat interviews, Thriving Abroad, where we go all over the globe to find the most amazing people that are living the most amazing lives, that live in the most exotic places. And I'm super excited today to share one of the places that has always been on my list of places to go. And now after this, it's going to be on the top of my list actually to go prioritize it. I am here with the lovely Vanessa, who is in Athens, Greece. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really, really excited about this interview.
Great. Well, we're both going to be really excited. So as I was mentioning to you earlier, Greece is kind of on everyone's radar right now. It's one of those countries that just seems to be getting a lot of tourism, press in the news, and it's always been a beautiful place, Athens, and the mythology, but for some reason now people are just starting to rediscover or discover Greece. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about, what is it? What is all this excitement about? Why is everyone so excited to discover Greece? But welcome. So you are originally from the capital, from
Yes,
Athens?
I was born in Athens, in Greece. I have lived abroad a few years. I have traveled, I would say for a Greek person, I've been lucky. I had the chance to travel fairly extensively. So I've been to Latin America, I've been to Asia for a few months. I lived in London for a few years. In terms of the States, sadly, I've only been to New York and Boston, but very different pace of life over there. So when I came back from London in 2005, I realized I actually missed this, the many cultures, and I started having a lot of foreign friends here in Athens. I joined several networks to host people, to meet foreigners who were visiting the country. And, with Facebook, as Facebook grew over the years, I joined a lot of groups for foreigners living here, expats living here. And, I see all the issues they might face day to day. But I'm fairly excited to be living in Athens. I think it's an interesting city.
Yeah, there's so much history, to the country itself, about the country, and we always hear about the Greek gods and Athens and the Romans and and all of that, but there's so much more to the culture than that. Not many people know that there's dozens and dozens of islands in Greece. I just found that out recently.
Right.
We only hear about Athens or Santorini or Mykonos, all of those, Mykonos.
Mykonos.
Yeah. Those are the only islands that we usually hear about, but there's so much more to this country. What are what do you think are some of the things that make Greece so unique, that is so inviting to people now?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess a lot of people come here for, like you said, the history and the mythology. So some people have learned a lot of this at school, and especially people from the US that I've met, they've always had this thing to go to Greece with a very long history. And it's true, like we have a very long history. We've been through a lot. So there were, like you say, ancient Greece, and then there was like the Romans who lived here. Then there was something called the Byzantine Empire. Then there was the Ottoman Empire. And, for the past couple of 100 years, we've been like a new country, a modern country. So the history has been so long and so varied, and like architectural styles. So within Athens, you're going to see a lot of ancient things that are like from 500 BC. You're going to see a lot of Byzantine temples that are from, say, the 10th century, 12th century. Of course, some Roman things. You're going to see more recent things, and you're going to see a lot of buildings that were built in the last 50 years. So it's really like, how to put it? It's a mix of different styles, which, to the best of my knowledge, there are other countries in Europe and, of course, Turkey that has an old civilization. So I'm talking about, the close region around here. But there is also, we've got, like you said, a lot of islands. So the inhabited islands, based on the last census, which was 10 years ago, are like 119. And like you say, people know Santorini, know Mykonos, maybe they know Crete and Rhodes, but we have so many more islands, and some of them are so remote. I mean, even for me, if I want to take a boat, it would take me over 20 hours on the ferry to go to one of these islands, which is why most people have never heard of them. And I think in most people's heads, yeah, Greece is a mix of the history, but the beaches, I don't know, maybe the landscapes, the food. And I have to tell you, Greek food here tastes nothing like it tastes in most other countries. I've tried to have it, you know, more out of curiosity. I don't know, people talk about the Greek mentality, how Greeks are friendly. I can't really be a judge because I'm actually Greek, so it's hard to tell. I do like the scenery here. It's a very small country in a way. I'm not really sure how to compare it to one of the US states, but it's not a big country. But because of the diversity, and like there are some islands to the east of the mainland, other islands to the west of the mainland, they're all very different. So, you know, a person coming here for a week is just going to get a flavor. It's like a tiny, tiny flavor, like you would in any other country, of course. But yeah, I think Greece is very, very high, like it's a top priority for many people. And if they can, so especially people coming from the States, if they can, because it's a long trip, often it's an expensive trip. So if they can do it, most people are very, very excited to come here.
Let's say that I am looking to spend a few months, not as a tourist, but I just want to experience Greece. I want to live there. Where would you suggest would be a good place? Now, I'm American, but you know, it could be anyone, you know, any foreigner. What are some places that you would recommend as far as a place?
Yeah. It's a very good question. So we get this question a lot, and the answer is always, what do you want? What is your main priority? Is your main priority the beach? Is your main priority to be near or living in the big city? What time of the year are you planning to come? Because many people don't realize that Greece has like the full 4 seasons. So we may have snow in winter. So some areas could get really low temperatures. I will need to find that later, but I'm not sure about the Fahrenheit, but it could be -20, -15 Celsius. So it's actually very, very cold. So most of the expats I have met prefer somehow warmer weather. So as an indication, Athens can be super warm in summer. So we had the heat wave 2 weeks ago, and 1 week ago, it was like 45 degrees. I will need to look it up again, but it's a lot. So, and it's actually not pleasant, even for us who live here. It's like, you know, it's like really hot. So I think the answer depends a lot on, are you planning to spend 2 or 3 months? And which of these months, which months do you want to come here? Is it going to be summer? Is it going to be spring or autumn? I mean, spring is actually milder. So most people will like the weather in spring more. It's just that the sea is a little bit cold, because after winter, the sea is not as warm as you'd think. So it's nothing like the Caribbean or, you know, Central America. The sea can be pretty cold here. So I cannot swim in winter. I have friends that swim in winter, but, you know, on a rainy day with clouds and like no sun, personally, I don't really see the point in going swimming. So it really depends on what you want to do. And also, especially for people over a certain age, hospitals are very important. So smaller islands, like the famous ones you mentioned, Santorini and Mykonos, they might be, you know, like world-known destinations. But if you actually want to be very close to a hospital, this is not the place to move to. So to answer your question, a lot of people choose Athens. There are areas in the south of Greece. It's an area called the Peloponnese, if you've heard of it. So this is an area with very rich history. So there are sites like ancient Mycenae, Messini, Olympia, where the Olympic Games started. And there is also a town called Kalamata. It's by the coast. It's got a very big, very modern hospital nearby. So it's actually getting higher in people's you know, if they want to move somewhere, it's one of the places I would recommend. Then you have a bigger island called Rhodes. which is kind of south, so it gets a bit of a better weather than, for example, in northern Greece. And then you have another island called Crete, which is a much bigger island. It's to the south of the mainland.
And it has a lot of history there too. In Crete.
It has heaps of history, and it's insane. It's like lovely to drive around. However, it can get kind of cold and damp in winter. So if you want to come here for November, January, from November to February, pretty much, you will find that the weather is not as sunny as you'd expect it, like overall. So if you only want to come here for, say, 3 months, so for some people they can only come for 3 months, I would personally suggest, come between, say, mid-April and mid-July, something like that, because then after mid-July and to all the way to the end of August, then we get all the crowds, because this is when most people can take time off. So you get all the Europeans and even the Greeks. So if you were thinking to move here for a few months, I would personally avoid August. So as far as I'm concerned, I never travel around Greece in August. I stay in Athens, even though it's so hot, but I don't see the point. Or I would choose to go to a very remote place that is hard to get to, and then you don't get the crowds.
Where do most of the expats live? Is it a huge community?
Look, there are communities of people who live here. So I can tell you for Athens, so there are suburbs that are on the coast, because Athens is, there's like a peninsula, and like Athens is in the center. So from the center of Athens, it would take you, maybe 40 minutes to drive to the coast, depending on traffic and the day of the week, because weekends are very busy. So there are a lot of expats that are living on the suburbs that are by the coast. There are also expats that come here with children, and they want international schools. So they live in suburbs that are closer to these particular schools. And then so I think for most people moving here with family, schools are a very important factor. So they are kind of restrained. They are, they need to find out where the schools are. So for people who are, maybe young couples or solo, digital nomads, or maybe pensioners, they may have other priorities. So for Athens, with Athens in mind, either the coastal areas or what we call the northern suburbs. With Crete in mind, there are expat communities in different areas of the island, but many of them might consider going back home for winter, or they might skip winter altogether, because the islands, it doesn't shut down like other islands do. So Mykonos, for example, kind of shuts down in winter. But they might not feel the international vibe that they would prefer, if that makes sense. So for example, in terms of Mexico, I know that it could be an all year round community, from what I understand.
Yes.
Here it can be a little bit different, and but I would say, popular places: Athens, Kalamata, maybe Crete, Rhodes, and there's the second biggest city in Greece is called Thessaloniki. It's up in the north. So I've met expats who live there, but I don't think the community is as big.
So we've got a couple of really nice things that we've got. It's family friendly. You do have good infrastructure. It's busy on the weekends. What is the day-to-day life like? I know that the pandemic has caused our lives to be totally different, but
of course,
putting that aside, what is the day-to-day life like in Greece on average? What can we expect our life to be like?
Right. Well, I think to a certain degree, this depends on what you do for a living. So maybe you don't need to work. So then your life is going to be very different from a person who comes here and needs to work either in a company here, which is not very easy at all, unless you come here with a job already, or you were invited by a company. It's not super easy to get a job. However, there are companies that offer. There is a very famous company over here that is based in Athens, and they want a lot of people speaking different foreign languages, and especially the ones that are less common. But they offer kind of the minimum wage. So if you move here with the minimum wage, you can kind of get by, but you can just kind of get by. So it really depends on your circumstances when you move here. So if you don't work, so if you don't need to work, you can just hang out all day long, because you can just go to cafes, you can walk around, eventually you're going to make friends. So I guess you're probably talking about a person who comes here and works. Is that correct?
Well, either or, there's so many different, like you said, so many different circumstances. Maybe I'm retiree, maybe I still have to work, or I can work online, just some of the scenarios. But what would you say on average is, a good budget for someone? And just the average, I know it just depends on your spending, how much you make, but what would you say is like a monthly budget that's a normal budget?
Yeah, okay. By law, there is a minimum salary here, which works out to about €3 per hour. So it's really not that much at all. And it's very hard to live on that money if you have to rent. So people who would have the minimum salary would typically flat share. Flat share is not as common in Greece as in other European countries. Rents are typically lower than in other European countries, but so are the salaries. I think for a person to be able to come, so let's say a single person who comes here and wants to, I'm talking more about Athens to begin with. I think anything under €1,000 a month, you would need to prioritize certain things over others. Of course, in pandemic times, when the restaurants were closed, the cinemas, like everything was closed here. So you could easily get by with like €700-800. But a typical rent would start depending on the area of the city, depending on if you want your own apartment. It actually vary a lot. So it's very hard to tell how much money you need to live comfortably, because it will depend on what you want to do.
Of course, and your spending,
yeah, of
your
course.
budget.
But as an indication, for example, I'm talking in Europe, it's hard to convert in dollars for the interview, but say a drink at a bar would be €4, €5, €6, €7. A meal, so if two people are sharing a meal, it would be maybe about €30, but you can eat cheaper, you can eat a lot more expensive. Rent would range from, I don't know, €250 to whatever. So €250 is maybe the least rent you would expect to pay for a tiny apartment somewhere in the center, maybe not in the best neighborhood. I guess, I don't know, a metro ticket is €120, so it's not like a huge amount. If you have a monthly card for the metro, I believe these days it's €30. What other expenses would you be interested in?
Well, just in general, I feel that most people, they start a budget, or they should, before considering moving to another country. So, what is my food budget going to be? What is my rental budget going to be? But you pretty much kind of covered that. I feel that people do need to do the research, and we can't cover it all here in our chat. We're just kind of enticing people and giving them, a basic idea of what life would be like living there.
Of course.
But I'm really thinking that, overall, it seems like it is within a normal, like a retiree budget. Or do you know, or do they have like a digital nomad program there in Athens?
There is something that has allegedly started in the last couple of months. I'm not fully aware of how it works, but hopefully there's going to be a little more information later on in the year. So at the moment, I'm not fully aware of how it works.
Okay.
So I don't want to misguide you for this. Yeah. And I have to say, however, so because like you said earlier, people know of Santorini and Mykonos, right? So these particular islands are completely off budget when it comes to accommodation. So if you want to move there, and as an example, let's say a new teacher is appointed to work in Mykonos. They cannot find an apartment. There is no way they're going to find an apartment, because cheap apartments are reserved for seasonal workers. So a lot of people move to Mykonos just for the season, because They know they're going to have a lot of work. They know they're going to have a lot of tips. So if you want to move to the most expensive islands, you're probably not going to do it unless you have a very, very big budget, because you're either a pensioner or you have some income from something. But in a way, they're not the most affordable places to move.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, especially Santorini. I hear that that's very touristy. So you have a blog, a wonderful blog where you talk about, I mean, things, daily life and things to see and do in Greece. And I am going to leave a link for folks in the bottom, to check it out. And I also would like to put it out there that, if folks have an interest in Greece, for maybe, living for short term or even long term, that they can connect with you to get
of course.
More information. And before I leave you, I wanted to ask you, as a person who is born and has lived in other countries, but you're back home now. What is one thing that you would love for people to know about Greece? Maybe something that we don't know, but what would you say is one thing that that you would love for people to know about your country?
I somehow hate to say it, but okay, Greece is not Santorini. Okay, so this is my thing in a nutshell. So, and in all fairness, I've been to Santorini a few times in the past, but also in the last few years. I was in Santorini in the off season. I loved it because it wasn't crowded. There weren't like the tourist crowds. I've been there in summer. To me, it feels a little bit like a Disneyland. So I get it that people have seen all the photos with the white and blue churches, and fair enough. However, there are another 23 islands in the same group of islands that have the same white and blue churches, and they're a lot more authentic. So I get it. I mean, I've been to very popular places like, Machu Picchu and other things. And of course, they're scenic. And of course, it's maybe for some people, it's like a bucket list thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to experience what I call the real Greece, you really have to get out of the popular places. And it's hard to tell that to especially people from your country that only have like 2 weeks a year. And with the traveling time, you're not really going to have enough time to see like the real Greece, but maybe do a little bit of research in advance and see, do you need a week in Santorini, or could you maybe spend 2 or 3 days and maybe move to another island that you haven't heard of? And then do your research about this other island and see if this might be more interesting in terms of authenticity, if this is what you're after.
I love it. I love that.
I think that.
No, I love it. It's very important that people know that. It's kind of like the same thing here in Mexico, that everyone thinks that Cancun is what Mexico is really like, and it's not. Cancun is so different from, the rest of Mexico. So you can't judge Cancun, for the rest of the country, like Santorini is not all of Greece. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming and sharing your beautiful country with us. Hopefully people will reach out to you for more information and get to know the real Greece. And not just the one that we see on, magazines and on Instagram with the beautiful people posing, that there are some other beautiful places and really endearing places that we can find on that beautiful country. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We're going to be following your blog, and hopefully we are going to help put Greece on the map. As far as one of the nicest places to consider if you are thinking of living abroad. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.